Right, because I might have to. This might take a little bit. This might take a little bit. Yeah, I did know I was back on screen. Yeah, I can only set the audio when the screen's back on. People saying better. Right, I might have to, every time I go to a different screen, I might have to change that over. I'm having some audio issues at the minute, so I apologise for that. Right, let's get back to this then. Everyone's saying yeah, sound some interference. I think we're back rocking and rolling now. Silent but deadly. Um, right, where we are. Chuck and Deb Taylor. Good evening to you folks. Glenn Griffin. Hello, everybody. We've got 158 people in. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. I might now turn the volume up. So let me get this up a little for you. Let's turn this up. Let me know when it gets a bit better. Hopefully that's your. Oh, that may be a bit loud. Let me know if that's okay for levels, folks. Is that all right? Oh, that's a bit better. I need to buy a new mic. Anyway, so what we're going to do tonight, then, this is going to be awkward now because I'm going to have to go in and set a new microphone up every time I switch to a new screen. But you can handle that for 2 minutes, can't you? You can handle that while we do that, and then I'll have to edit it all out tomorrow and do something. 1-2-1-2 Pomsy saying yes, right. So tonight, let me tell you a little bit about. So yes, as I said before, I do have the rule book here. I'm intentionally not showing you much to it. All 96 pages of it, and like I said, I've read all the way through, front to back, the full lot, and yes, I'm pretty impressed with it. I should say I'm pretty impressed. So I just need to remember when I switch between different screens, I'm going to have to set the audio up again. So yes, tonight I'm going to talk about Kings of War Armada and tell you why it's the naval game that I didn't really think I needed. Now, naval games have always kind of interested me. However, the historical aspect of it has never really been like my kind of thing. Really, I've never been into kind of sort of Napoleonics. I've never been into like sort of Black Power, that kind of stuff. So games like Black Seas, whilst they look very attractive, didn't really grab me the same way. I picked up Dreadfleet many years ago, as I'm sure many of you did too. I loved that kind of fantasy aesthetic. However, the fact that it basically got pretty much bashed from release, kind of I was going to say took the wind out of my sails to use a bit of a corny line there, but it kind of did dampen it for me, and I couldn't really get anybody to be interested to play the game, so it kind of sat on a shelf and it's been pretty much unplayed. I did also pick up Cruel Seas. I fancied playing a bit of a naval combat game, but again, the rule book was badly written. There were lots and lots of errors in it when it was first printed, and again, I just never really got around to doing anything with it. Games like Man of War, like Uncharted Seas, games like Dystopian Wars, I've been aware of them, but those games were discontinued long before I ever really kind of started looking at naval games, and none of my kind of local players ever played those games, so I never really got a chance to give them a try. So when my Nick told me about this game, I was obviously interested in it because it was a new game, and I'm always interested in new games. But I wondered if it was something that I'd really be interested in. I knew it was based upon the Black Seas rules, but I didn't really know much about Black Seas rules, so I wasn't sure whether it was something that would sort of really interest me. And in that case, I couldn't really make a firm judgment on whether I thought it would be something for me or not. And I knew for me it would come down to probably a couple of things. One would be the quality of the ships themselves, the sculpts, and were the rules accessible enough for me to be able to get my head around it, to be able to teach new players to play it as well, and it being a bit more casual rather than a really kind of historically accurate rule set. Because I knew it was based on Black Seas, and I didn't know how much Black Seas was a bit of a simulation rather than a kind of almost arcadey type sort of type game. Now, since then, I've done a lot more research. I've obviously got the rule book now, so I've read that cover to cover. I've looked into Black Seas to understand a bit more about it, and now I can kind of tell you some of the things that's been changed between the two different rule sets. And I can definitely say that, like Matt Gilbert from Mantic and the team that's been involved have they've made some good changes that I think will benefit a fantasy rule set. So a few of the things that kind of stand out to me in the early points really is, if anybody's familiar with Black Seas, you will know that the wake markers off the back of the ships, those little kind of things that tell you whether you're at full sail or whether you're anchored, They've all been taken away. Matt's done away with those. There is now basically tokens that you will put on your ship cards to tell you at what speed you're at. The little clips that used to be around the edge of those Black Seas cards as well, that tell you how many hull points damage you've taken, they were fiddly as hell as well. They've been taken away, and there is a space on the card where you put damage tokens now. The one big difference between the two games, and it might not seem a big difference to most people, but one big difference is the fact that the ships for Armada come on bases. So you can install them yourself, for example. They don't come on the bases, but you have to put them onto a base of a certain size, depending upon the size of the ship. And it might seem kind of trivial at first, but if you watch any Black Seas videos, you'll see just how kind of inaccurate and how kind of fiddly it is to do the turning angles, to be able to kind of measure properly with the ships, and actually just putting them onto a rectangular base tidies all of that up. It makes the turning angles. Thank you very much, Arnold. Thank you very much. It makes all of the turning angles much sharper. It makes the measuring much more accurate. If you're trying to measure between ships for ranges and things, it means you're always measuring from the right points. So even just putting them on bases has actually had a big effect on the game. The ship cards themselves have increased in size as well, so they're a kind of a standard size for Black Sails. The new ship cards for Armada are the same size as the Walking Dead character cards, if anybody's familiar with them. So they're quite a size, and this means that there's plenty of space on those cards to put your tokens, so that the actual board itself, your kind of like your C board, doesn't get littered with lots and lots of tokens. You can put those tokens onto the actual cards. And obviously in Black Seas, a lot of those ships look very, very similar. That's not the case with Kings of War Armada, because it's fantasy. The ships are much more kind of fantastical. The wind rules. There's been a little bit of discussion online about wind rules. Now in Black Seas, in the core part of the rules, I think there's 6 different directions that the wind can come from, and it makes it slightly more complex than I think it needs to be initially. And obviously in this game, in a fantasy game, it's not just about sails. Some boats have oars. Some boats actually have engines when it comes to things like the dwarves and stuff. So the wind, for all it plays an important part in the game, it needs to be changed a little bit to enable it to kind of level it out a little bit and balance it between ships with sails and ships with engines and stuff. So that there's been a simplified version of the wind rules have been put into the game. However, the original wind rules from Black Seas are put in as an additional rule or an advanced rule. So if you want to play with those slightly more complex wind rules, they are in the game. They're there for you to use. If you just think it's one more thing to remember and to get in the way of having fun, you can completely leave it out. It's entirely up to you. So they are optional. And also the addition of magical items. Obviously, there's no magical items in what's it called, in Black Seas. Thank you very much, Bjorn, as well. I just saw that flash up on my screen. There's no magical items in Black Seas for obvious reasons. And I like the way that Matt's incorporated them. They kind of link into the Kings of War universe as well. So it's not. If you're familiar with Kings of War, there's some nice little kind of crossovers with those. Within Black Seas, you roll low on a dice to try and achieve something. So if you roll a 1, it is a critical 1. You've done a critical hit on a 1. Matt's turned them around now. So if you're rolling on a D10, a 10 is now a critical roll. It might seem like a trivial thing, and you might be thinking, well, why even bother changing it? One thing is, in all Kings of War games, higher is better. The other one is, it's a bit less mental maths. You might not think it actually, but when you're so used to kind of rolling high is better, and when it comes to doing things like taking damage on your ships or whatever, counting up until you hit like a nerve value or something, it's much easier to count up rather than to count up your tokens and then take it away from your ship's total. It's surprising, but it speeds it up. I've kind of pushed some bits of kind of cardboard around the right size just to work through the rules, and you'd be surprised kind of just what a difference it makes. The rules around building a fleet, really, really simple. Nothing too complex in there. I think Matt mentioned it on the Countercharge podcast, so I'm not kind of upsetting anybody by revealing that. But essentially, there's rules in there to stop you just taking sort of lots and lots of very, very small boats and kind of like outmaneuvering or kind of like outshooting your opponent like that. They're very simple rules though, nothing too difficult. For example, if you want to buy a starter box and your friend buys a starter box and one of you wants the Basileans and one of you wants the Orcs and you split them, all of those ships will be possible to use in a two-player game. So if you use 2 lots of Basileans, your opponent uses 2 lots of Orcs, both of those things will be available to use. Within Black Seas, there's a couple of different tables for critical hits, which really goes into quite sort of a little bit of extra detail that I don't think the game needs. It's things about kind of damaging sails and damaging rudders and lots of different things. That there's 2 tables because in Black Seas you can shoot high and you can shoot low as well. That's been streamlined down. It's much easier to understand now, but still keeps the theme of kind of those big critical hits, kind of taking out the sails or damaging the rudder, so it can only turn you can only turn right on your next activation or something until you can repair it. Within Black Seas, there's a break value, and it's been replaced with a nerve value. It still kind of works the same way, but it links in again with the Kings of War universe. Within Black Seas, there's a lot of ammunition choices as well in the more advanced rules. That's kind of been removed from this because you have a mixture of like magical kind of spells and things as well as cannons and stuff. So it's dealt with a little bit more simply, but it's not like dumbing the game down. There's been modifications to hit charts as well. It's been simplified. Within the Black Seas rules, there's some kind of complications around which gun you fired first and in what order. It's been simplified for this game, and it's basically if you're firing from the broadsides or if you're firing from the front or the rear, it all counts as one thing. Collision damage is handled a little bit more variably in this. So if 2 ships hit each other, there's a lot of things to try and stop the ships hitting each other. You can do evading maneuvers and all sorts of things. But if it's unavoidable and your ship does hit something, the collision damage is sort of a bit more variable, so it's not as obvious, which is a good thing, I should add. There's some advanced rules from Black Seas that are actually part of the core rules for Armada, which is interesting. So it's not like all of the theme and all of the flavor are being pulled out to make it easy. There's actually some of the stuff that is in the advanced rules for Black Seas that is actually in the core rules for Armada. And then there's a few bits of advanced rules like musket fire and things have been removed as well. So, folks, I'm going to start to show you some ships now. We've got some. I have to say as well, folks, I think a few of you must be excited for this because we've got 287 people in the chat tonight, and I think this might be a new record. So I apologise when I flip over to the next screen. I'm going to have to add the microphone in again. So I'm going to show you first. I'm going to show you the Dwarf Starter Set and explain a little bit about what ships you get in them as well. Because I think we've seen the stuff that's coming in the first wave. This is the stuff that is coming in January. So bear with me a second. There might be no sound initially, but bear with me. Let me go back here a second. If I copy this, I can paste it into the new one, and then everything should work fine. Right, we should have sound. Have we got sound? Well, we've got sound. That's good. I can do it quickly now, I think. So what you'll see here is this is the Dwarf Starter Set. I think the box might be a bit of a mock-up, but the contents should stay the same. And what we've got in this Dwarf Starter Set is we've got 1 Grimstone, which is the ship to the right-hand side there. The Grimstone is a medium ship. We've got 1 Rune Axe, which is the medium ship to the left. And then at the bottom there, we've got 1 Thunderer, which is a small ship. And for those that don't know, basically, the ships in Armada come in tiny, small, medium, large, and extra large. And for those of you that come in for the extra large, we'll get to that one in a little bit. So this is what those ships are going to be in the starter set. I believe the price has been quoted as £29.99. I don't have the other exchange rate prices, but I'm sure you'll be able to find these online at the standard pricing. And you get 3 resin ships in that box. You get the cards that you need as well to field them, and you obviously get the bases too. I think they're MDF bases in these ones. So we'll go on to the booster one, and again, I'll just add a microphone in. We should have the microphone there now. There we go. There's the microphone. So yeah, so this is the Dwarf Booster Set. There's 4 ships in this one. And again, as I mentioned before, these are all coming out in January 2021, all going to plan. In this one, there is 1 Runax ship, which has extra additional parts for it. So it's not the same as the Runax that's in the starter box. That is the one on the left hand side there. You can't see me moving my mouse, but yeah, it's the one to the left hand side in the middle. There is 1 Fury ship, which is the small one at the bottom. That's a small ship, and then there are 2 Hunter ships, which are the 2 to the right and at the top there. Those 2 are the same ships, and they are small ships. Now you might be thinking, like, where's all of the large ships for the dwarfs? Essentially, dwarfs have kind of engine-powered ships. They haven't got big sails on them. They're quite obviously much more armored. They're a bit more. They're obviously less susceptible to wind if you're using the additional rules. So the dwarfs, they're short, and they're kind of like armor clad. So there isn't any large ships as of yet for the dwarfs. There is an extra large ship, which is called. Actually, I'm not sure if I'm not. Yeah, I am allowed to give that one because everyone's seen the big kind of beigey coloured one with all the different ships on. I think it's called the Dreadnought. I think it is. So there is an extra large ship for that one, but we haven't seen that. The extra large ships are releasing a little bit later. I don't not back end of next year, but after wave 2. So that's the dwarf ships. We're going to come across to the Empire of Dust now, and I'll show those ones. And again, I'll just add the microphone in. And there we go. We've got our microphone back again. So this is the Empire of Dust starter set. And in this one, you can see the small ship on the bottom left-hand side there. That is a Soul Hunter. And again, obviously, it's a small ship. We've then got a medium ship to the top left there. That one is the Capishi, which is particularly nice, actually. I like these. I must admit, these ones are kind of particularly I like the style of these ones. They're a bit different. And then the large ship to the right-hand side there is called a War Galley, and it looks pretty cool there. So the three ships in this one. Again, all of the cards and the MDF bases come with this one as well, so the stats will be on those cards. Right, onto the Empire of Dust booster. Again, I'll add a microphone in, so give me a second. And then we should be working. There we go. So here we've got the booster one. And I think people may have seen these, but I'm not sure if they've seen like sort of any particularly kind of better quality pictures of them. These ones are particularly good quality pictures. And in this one, we have the medium bottom left. The bottom left there, the medium one is another Capishi. We have the medium ship to the top right with the big sail as well. That one is a Dust Chaser. And then we have 2. You'll see that like there's 2 smaller ones, top left and bottom right, and there's 2 ships on the base as well of these ones. And these are what's called slave squadrons. Squadrons are something that is mentioned in the rules. I don't want to go into too much detail because they've not been talked about yet. But that's what essentially they are. They are they're a squadron of smaller ships, and that's why there's a couple of them on the base. They do come separate from the base. They're not kind of fitted to the base, so you can model them however you like. But yes, that's what they are. So that's what's coming in Wave 2 in January next year. 2 more factions. There are 4 more factions that have been play tested and are being looked at the minute. One of them is Kingdoms of Men. We know that one from the podcast that Matt was on. The other 3 haven't been revealed yet. So we'll know more once Matt come to reveal that one. So we've got a great crowd in now, all 332 of you. I'm going to switch across and I'm going to show you the first reveal of the XL ship. And I'll put some pictures of this up online after the stream and stuff, so that you don't have to screen. Well, you can screenshot with my face if you want to. But yeah, I'm going to switch across to it. I'll let you have a quick look at it while I put the microphone on again. But here is the first ever XL ship that we've been seeing. So this one. There we go. We should have some sound now. Yes, so this one, no prizes for guessing which faction this one is from. This is the Basilean ship, and this one is the Dictator class. Now, there are two different types of dictators. One of them is a named ship. I don't think I've got the details in front of me here, but no, I don't think I have actually. Or I might have, but I might not be allowed to read that one. But yeah, so this one is the Dictatorship. This one is the XL size. So this is going to be the biggest of the ships, or the biggest of the bases that you will see in the game. I'm assuming that we're not going to get any extra large ships later on down the line. But this one basically has a lot of firepower. I haven't seen the rules for this yet, so I can't tell you kind of just how much more powerful it is than other ships. But basically, from a theme point of view, and from you can see from the sides of it and stuff, there is a lot of firepower on this particular ship. And it says here that it has 3.5 gun decks, which I think what you can see up the side, I think they're essentially the different gun decks coming from the side of it. So I'll leave that up for a little bit while I catch up with the chat, so you can all have a good look at it. And I'll pop back into the chat here on my screen. Of course, my iPad's just locked there, and I'll just dive in here or something, and we'll see where we are. Dax the Destroyer saying only 60 likes. hit that like button. Right, let me just go back. I may have to do it from here actually. So yeah, there's a few folks there having a good chat about it. Mark Flanagan, good evening to you. Steve Evans, hello to you. Jason, hello. He's saying yeah, 1/700 heroic scale. That's what they are. VG saying love the ornamentation as well on the Empire Dust ships. Yeah, I like them as well, mate. They're really, those ones I think, and the Orc ones are really the kind of the more fantasy ones for me so far. Dan Hughes saying hello, mate, saying they look really nice. Hello, Beauty as well, saying what kind of terrain will be available or maybe not possible at sea. I think in the starter box, mate, you'll get some kind of punch out card terrain for kind of like little islands and stuff. The rules are pretty similar from terrain perspective to that of Black Seas. So they do mention things like sandbanks. They mention things like islands. You can obviously crash into wrecked ships. So there's a number of different things. I mean, I've personally, and I've got them on my table here. So I've got my my Dreadfleet bits of islands and stuff that I'll probably be using in some of mine just to save me some time trying to make stuff. So that's what we've got from a terrain perspective. Peter saying it's mainly water, I guess. I mean, remember, folks, that like the turning circles on ships are quite large, and essentially, for those that don't know how Black Seas works, this game works exactly the same way. You will have a speed of your ship, and that speed of your ship is basically how many times you can move, and you have to move its maximum knots in inches. So you can move, turn, move, turn, move, turn for like a three move ship if you like. So you can imagine it's going to, let's say it moves 10 inches, it's going to be moving 30 inches across the board kind of thing. This is why you need it. This is why we're not playing on like a 2x2 mat or a 3x3 mat. You're going to need some space, and the more ships you get, the more kind of maneuverability you're going to need. So that's why it's a slightly bigger game. Scenario wise, we're probably talking like 4 foot by 3 foot. You'll be playing on quite easily. 3x3 if you've got like a lot less ships is not too bad. And I think if you're really wanting to push up the numbers of your ships, a 6x4 mat is probably what you're going to be looking at. But don't let that put you off. If you just want to play it sort of like 5 or 6 ships each, you'll be fine on like a 3x4 or a 4x4 board. VG saying needs more rats. Ian saying Squadrons interesting. Yes. John Francis saying okay, wave 2. Yes. So wave 1 is the Orcs and the Basileans and the launch stuff. Let me just go back to the main screen now, and we'll come back to that one later if people want to see it. So wave 1 is the 2-player starter set. It's the mat. It's the rule book. It's the Orcs. It's the Basileans. Wave 2 then comes in January next year, and that is the Empire of Dust, and that is the Dwarfs. The ships that are being sent to me at the moment that should have arrived today, they went out on Friday. They're obviously just delayed in the post. I'll probably end up getting them tomorrow now. Typically, I've got Basileans and I've got Dwarfs coming to me, and then I think Mantic said that basically they're producing the Orc stuff, and as soon as that's produced, that they're going to send that one out to me as well to have a look at. So if you're not subscribed to my channel, please do consider clicking the subscribe button. I've got the rules here. I'm playing through them at the minute to try and like make sure I can do a really kind of good job of it. There's a lot more I can tell you that I'm intentionally holding back. I'm actually going to share some stuff. The scenarios in the book are fantastic. I'm really impressed with the scenarios. I don't want to say any more than that. I don't want to spoil that stuff. But yeah, if you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. I'll be showing off the resin ships as soon as they arrive. I'll be doing some painting of them as well. I do a live stream painting every Wednesday. So assuming they come today or tomorrow or Wednesday night, I'll be painting some of those ships up. And I'll be doing like kind of like a how to play battle report type thing to explain how the game plays. So if you're on the fence, if you're not sure if this game's for you, I'll have the information to kind of to give you all of that to make an informed decision if you haven't already backed the game. Let's have a look on here as well. Phil saying, I want to put a tiny brass Minotaur on that double sail Empire of Dust ship. Yes. Let me just see where we're up to there. I think I'm catching up with some of the chat here now. We've got VJ saying, hoping Night Stalkers is effectively a sea monsters faction, like with the Kraken and stuff. Yeah, well, Matt's already said this. You can obviously fight and try and capture sea monsters and stuff in the game as well. So yeah, I can imagine seeing more sea monster stuff come into the game. Peter Kuhlman saying ghost ships. Barry says so have these molded sails, not like the card stock. Yes, it's one. Thank you for bringing that up. It's a really good point. The original ships in Black Seas were plastic with like rigging sort of thread and with paper sails. These are all 100% kind of solid resin. If I go back and I show you, let's go back to the Dictator again. That is all resin. The sails are resin, the masts are resin, the hull of the ship is resin. It's all resin. It does come as kind of multi-part. It doesn't come as one big lump. So you will be able to kind of paint it. You'll be able to sort of clean it up, prime it, and paint it separately as a sub-assembly, and then build it up. I'll be showing you that when my ships come, and I'll be able to show you exactly sort of the quality of them, how they look when they arrive, and basically how simple they are basically to put together. So I'll be able to show you all that stuff. So yeah, if people who, one of the questions I had in my Facebook group today was about, this is a bit more expensive than Black Seas. Should I just buy Black Seas instead? One of the biggest differences is that is obviously that there's resin in this, which is a bit more expensive. It's a bit more expensive to produce, and obviously there's no paper sails in this and kind of things. The scale's that little bit bigger from kind of a bit more heroic scale. So from a hobby side of things, I think unless you're really sort of lusting after that kind of the Black Seas Age of Sail type particular models, you'll find I think that these are much better quality from what I've seen personally. I'll be able to give you a full rundown on them as soon as I get them in my hand. Let's have a look. Marco was saying, what about monsters? I can't go too much into that because it starts to get involved with like scenarios and things like that. But no, I'm not going to comment any more on that one without hanging myself on that. Krabby says these look potentially really nice models. Yeah, they look fab, mate. Peter saying Dreadfleet. There's definitely some kind of crossover from inspiration and stuff, mate. Luke's in as well. Hello, Luke. He's saying I'm more than happy my pre-order's not getting cancelled. Yes, definitely, mate. Where was that one now? Pomsy saying the boats look great. Steve saying salamanders. Who knows there? Who knows? Jim saying I want to paint this. Christian's just sharing a link as well to the Facebook community. Thank you very much, mate. Busey saying I may consider adding a few bits of waste plastic to the sea and a few bits of debris floating. There's rules for basically crashing their ships into each other. I've not even mentioned about boarding actions as well, about when the ships come. If you are within 3 inches of another ship at the end of your kind of movement phase, you can try and kind of do a boarding action where basically you kind of grapple the ship, you pull the 2 ships together, and then obviously the crew start fighting against each other. This happens in Black Seas as well, so I'm not giving anything away with this, but it's another kind of thematical sort of part of it. So it's not just kind of it's not like X-Wing on water, if you like. There's kind of hand-to-hand combat in there as well. There's the crews fighting against each other. Busey saying sharks would be cool. Ian says, what's the most surprising thing the rules hint at? Flyers, submarines, and monsters. I can't go into that kind of stuff, mate. Matt's obviously done some stuff for further down the line, potentially further expansions and stuff, as well as what's in the current rules. There's some artwork in there that might suggest certain things, and obviously, like I say, Mantic want to reveal some stuff themselves as well. But let's just say there's probably some interesting things coming in the future. Flying Sharks. Meats and Taverns, hello there, says, I love that XL Basilean ship. I want controllable sea monsters too. Okay, I can't give too much away. Lord Maiden saying he's liking the Empire Dust ships. It's Bomb says, I want to say, is it worth me and a mate buying the starter set, swapping ships, or will we have too many? Yeah, you asked me that question on YouTube today, mate. Essentially, from the list building rules, you can use them both. If you look on the Facebook groups, you'll see the pictures of all the different ships that's available. I don't think there's ever going to be a problem with having kind of more like multiple ships, if you like, of the same type. I think it'll just give you options to try out different fleets. So you might not use them all of the time, but you will be able to use them all, and you can use them all. Pomsy saying, I've seen people working on octopus legs and things coming up from the sea. Yeah, Busey saying schools of piranha fishing eating chips. Phil says, I'm stoked for these. Being such a huge fan of Man of War back in the day, this better be a decent game to play. What I've kind of wrote as a bit of a kind of closing thing here is really like the addition of the fantasy theme has been the tipping point for me. That's the bit that's really got me interested in this. And Mantic have done a good job of streamlining the approach and focusing on fun and fantasy of this, but they haven't lost any of the theme of a kind of like a naval combat game. They haven't simplified it where you just say, well, it's not even real anymore. They might as well be kind of things flying about. There might as well be cars driving around, kind of thing. They haven't gotten rid of that naval theme from it. But what they haven't done is they haven't gone to the far end of the rules and made it like a simulation where there's lots and lots of tables to look up and to roll on, and where they've gone for like ultra realistic stuff over fun stuff. It's deep, it's tactical, it feels like naval combat, but with a fantasy twist, with magic and all of that kind of stuff as well. Yeah, so if you've been put off by kind of overly complicated naval games in the past, really where you almost feel like you're reading a manual on how to sail a ship, this isn't that kind of in-depth. By the same stretch, it is not simplified to the point where it's lost any depth either. I think they've hit a good sweet spot for a fantasy game that keeps the naval feel without it basically being without it kind of like just killing the rules, if you like. Let me go in here. Marcus is saying, given your reaction, Andy, there are monsters. VJ saying, like to see some dwarven gyrocopters. Glenn Griffin says, as a rule set, how hard is it to learn? What games would you compare it to for ease of learning? Is it a brain burner or easy to play, like, say, a Warcry, for example? I think there's potentially a little bit more to look up than something like Warcry, but if you've played something like Kings of War Vanguard, if you can play Kings of War, if you've played any of Mantic's other games, I would say this pitches firmly in that kind of wheelhouse. I think Mantic are really good at writing a rule set that is pretty simple to pick up. I mean, I'm notoriously bad for being able to read a rule set and let it sink into my head. It's one of the reasons I love Mantic's games. It's one of the reasons I love God Tier. It's one of the reasons I love Warcry. I can absorb a more simplified game, if you like, and then concentrate on the depth and the tactics. I've had no issues with this. I wouldn't say it was kind of as simplified as something like Warcry, but if you take Vanguard or you take let's say Dead Zone or something like that, it's pitched at that kind of level, I would say, when it comes to a complexity where very, very quickly you will know all of the options to you. I should also say as well, they've put a really, really good 2-page. If I can find it here, I will just hold it up and show it to you. Here we go. There is a double-sided or a 2-page reference sheet with everything on it. You could potentially play the game just from using this reference sheet. And certainly, once you're playing, you don't even need the rule book. If you've got that beside you, that reference sheet, you'll know everything you need to know for this game. Filled in there, Krakens, Narwhals, Leviathans, Sea Dragons, Flies like Eagles. Yes, lots of scope. Marco says, how important is list building in the game? Obviously, I've not played it like in any kind of depth yet to understand the tactics of list building yet. But essentially, list building is there to try and stop any broken combinations. So you have to have, I think, basically for every 50 points, and the normal game plays at about 250 points, for every 50 points, you need to take one sort of standard battleship, or one of the kind of, I don't want to say large because it doesn't. I'm not referencing large as in the small, medium, large, extra large. One of the bigger battleships. So you can't just take lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of tiny ships and just kind of swarm the board with them. There are rules in there to try and stop you doing that. And that's from a list building perspective. That's kind of as difficult as it gets. It's not as difficult list building as something like Vanguard is a little bit more finicky, where you have unlocks and things like that. It's not that difficult. It's pretty straightforward, but there's a few basic building blocks in there to kind of stop some potentially broken stuff. Officially in the rules at the minute, you couldn't have an Orc ship and a Basilean ship and an Empire of Dust ship on your force. You could obviously if you want to play with your mates, but from the rules as they are, you kind of have to stay within your faction, much the same as kind of as any other games. Let's have a look on here as well. Ron saying, I'm guessing it's a streamlined version 2 of Black Sea with fantasy bits. I would say it feels like a second version where they found all of the things that don't quite work as well as they intended, or are maybe not as clear as expected, and then it's basically been manticified, if you like, so that it fits in with their universe. We've got magic in there as well and all that kind of stuff. And John saying there, the way you're describing the rules seems just right to me. Fun but tactical. That's exactly how I see it, mate. Like I said, I mean, I think one of the things that's put me off naval combat games in the past is one of the same things that's put me off historical games. It's there's that nervousness that it's going to have to be historically accurate, and it's going to be very kind of rivet countery and a little bit. You've painted the wrong colour sail on that particular. That kind of stuff has always put me off, like historical naval games. The fact that this is fantasy, it removes all of that kind of stuff. And as soon as you start like bringing kind of like magic into this, all bets are off about realism, really, kind of thing. It is very definitely a naval combat where wind affects the initiative of it, and the advanced rules, wind affects kind of the speed of the ships, whether the wind's coming from behind them, whether the wind's coming from in front of them or from the side. So that is there if you want it for extra depth. Like, for example, if both players are just playing with kind of sail-powered ships, you might want to throw that in. But if your opponent has got engines in their ship and you've got sails, you might not want to throw them extra wind rules in, unless you want to have an intentionally kind of slightly unbalanced kind of game, which might make it very interesting. Mountain Gremlin again saying, you're right, this is the perfect game for the Trident Realms. Peter says, I've played Sails of Glory a few times, it's just on the edge of too much detail for me. I've heard that about Sails of Glory, mate. I think the Black Seas rules, from what I understand, kind of reading a bit more about it online, trying to understand more details, is that there is a community of people who think it's not historically accurate enough and that wind doesn't behave like that with ships. I think there are advanced rules, again, for wind, where it can come from kind of 8 different directions in Black Seas. So I think there's people that say it's not historically accurate enough, and then there are some people who say actually it's a bit overly complex for a slightly more fun game, if you like. It's almost like it's well regarded as a rule set, but I think it's not simple enough for a simple game, and it's not complex or accurate enough for a historically accurate game. What Mantic have done is basically kind of round off some of those edges, throw in a mix of fantasy and kind of magic and stuff, and come out with a really, really good rule set. Phil saying, quick screenshots, ready to screenshot. Oh, that must have been going back to that one, was it? Everything I've got, I'll share it in my Facebook group when the stream's finished tonight. So if you're not a member of the BlackJack Legacy Community Facebook group, please come over and join. I'll be sharing them all on there as well. Mr. Spooky Thang says, it all sounds great to me. Those boards are really nice. Glad it's not Kickstarter. I think Mantic deserve props for moving away from the Kickstarter model. I think basically what Mantic have said is, we've talked about this a lot on my live streams. If you've got, if you're making plastic, you need to make plastic in huge quantities to be able to pay back the cost of getting those molds made. They're really cheap to make a plastic ship, for example, but you need to churn out huge numbers of them. The difference with Black Seas is that pretty much the hulls of those ships are pretty much the same across the entire range, with some few minor details. That's not the case when it comes to fantasy stuff. There's some very, very different ships available for this game. And so resin works really well. Mantic can kind of churn them out to order almost. They can do it all in-house. They can control it. There's none of this stuff getting made out in the Far East and waiting for it to ship and all of the sort of COVID issues and everything else. Resin is the perfect stuff for this. It might be a tiny bit more expensive than the kind of plastics and stuff. However, it gets really good detail. Mantic's resins have been fantastic of late. If anybody's seen the stuff for Vanguard, if anybody's seen the stuff for Kings of War, or you've seen the new the Spectre that's come out as well for Dead Zone, if you've seen any of the Walking Dead stuff that's come out in resin, they really are kind of the resin's really upped its game. I can't wait. I really wish I had them here today to show you them on the live stream. But as soon as I've got them, I'll do a video. I won't I'll not drag it out over 30 minutes. I'll just get a really good quality video up and show you them in detail. Where we got here? Steve saying Trident Realm submarines. It's Bomb says the rule is what makes me worry about me and my mate buying a set and then each of us only having the one army. That rule. I think, to be honest, I mean, essentially, that's the same rule in any game. If you're talking about basically only playing one particular faction, that's the same in any game, really. Of course, you can play however you want. If it's just you and your mate playing, play whatever you want. House rule it. It doesn't make a difference then, does it? I'll just skip ahead a little bit here as well. Mark Wright saying, what size gaming map would you play a game on? Phil saying 4x4, 6x4. George is saying there's a 3x3. The mat that comes in the starter set is an A0 size. It's a paper mat, which I think is roughly about... Oh, I did write the sizes down somewhere. It's roughly about 4x3-ish. I'm going to be using my Dreadfleet mat, basically because it's a cloth and it's not shiny and stuff. This is roughly about... I think it's about 5 foot by 3.5 foot, something like that. This one, that's where I'll be doing my demo stuff on. But yeah, I mean, if you've only got a small amount of space, you can quite easily basically do this on like a. You could certainly do kind of intro scenarios on like a 3x3 or something, or just use the paper mat that comes in the starter set. In fact, you could play probably all of the scenarios on just the paper mat that comes in it. 4x4, I think, is going to be the optimum size for a decent size fleet. But if you're really wanting to start to kind of simulate bigger battles and stuff, you probably want to go 6x4. Scott Webster saying, still need to see it played before I pay any money. Yeah, I completely agree, mate. And I think unless I knew more, I do know more about it. But I think in your boat, unless I knew more about it, I'd probably feel the same way as well. That's why as soon as I get the stuff together, I'm going to sort of do more content on this. That's why I'm saying, if you know, click the subscribe button, click the little bell notification so you get notified when them videos go live. I'm in a fortunate position. I'm getting the stuff kind of early to be able to share that with you. So that's why I'm kind of doing as much as I can now before the ships arrive. So I'm ready to just get it up, get the video out. As soon as kind of Mantic say, yep, you're good to go, release the video. And then I'll be able to share that with you. And the conversations I've had with Mantic is I would say that you'll have at least like a month and a half of being able to view my content, see what you think of it before it actually launches. Jason saying, I'm always calling it Black Sails as well. Yeah, Black Sails is a TV series, isn't it? Luke saying, I'm glad this was not a Kickstarter. I'm not in the mood for waiting for something. Yeah, I know what you mean, mate. Marcus says it was about John Silver and Captain Flint. Or was that Black Sails you're talking about? Marcus says, I'd love to have solo rules, maybe fighting a monster. I think, without giving too much away, I think there are scenarios in here that you could adapt to play this solo certain bits and pieces, I think. That would make it quite interesting. Because let's not forget, you've still got to steer your ships around your own ships as well. So even by losing an entire fleet that you're fighting against, you still have to avoid crashing into your own ships and crashing into islands and stuff. Peter says, might be worth noting the Mantic resin is not the brittle kind, but sturdy and a little flexible. Yeah, it's certainly not like fine cast stuff from the past and stuff. Martin, I will name my ship the Victorious Lobster and the Mighty Shrimp. Lucian, 6x4 will be my preference. Play all these fleet games on a 6x4. It just depends upon basically about how much space you've got, mate. VJ saying the starter set mat is 4x4. The neoprene mat that they're selling is 4x4. However, the paper mat that comes in the box is about 4x3, mate, roughly. Jason Stevenson saying just roughly that as well. Yeah, VJ saying he's keen for a bat rep. That'll be the clincher. Andrew Becker saying I've seen enough. Show me the money. Show me where to send the money. Actually, for anybody that hasn't pre-ordered this, there's a link in the description of this video that will take you through to Goblin Gaming, who will have 20% off all of the Armada stuff. If you click on the link, it goes through my affiliate link. I make a tiny commission from it for sending you there, but you don't spend any more, and you'll save 20% off the retail price. Mark's saying just in time for Santa. Yeah. Marcus is saying I need to find a small 3D print of 1,000 Sunny from One Piece. Oh, there's mate. BG saying solo rules for fighting the monsters would be cool. Ian saying how stable are the masts. Haven't got the ships in my hands yet, mate, but they're certainly, from what I can see of the pictures I've seen, they certainly look more stable than, say, like the plastic masts. Because I watched a video about doing the rigging on the Black Seas ships, and they were saying that they recommended doing the rigging because actually it holds everything a little bit more structurally tight as well, because the masts on them are pretty kind of pretty thin and flimsy and viable to snap. With this being with resin being a little bit more chunky, with being heroic scale as well, like they're not going to cast really sort of horribly thin masts. I mean, let's have a quick look at some of those pictures again. Let's go back to that Dictator one, see if we can see anything on it. I mean, you can see at the bottom of that middle sail, or like the second sail from the front, you can see it's quite chunky at the bottom there. So I'm imagining there's going to be a nice little kind of slot to kind of push that into in a good fit. Bit of super glue in there, and it'll fit really well. I'm sure you'll probably be able to magnetize them if you want to, if you're worried about them getting knocked off, or you want to take them off to kind of transport them. I'm pretty sure you'll probably be able to magnetize something like that. But yeah, as soon as I get my hands on them ships, I will give you all those kind of details. Also, I should just mention as well, if I go back to that one, you can see that the designs on the sails as well are cast into the designers, like they are cast into the model as well. So when you see those really nice ships that are all painted up, it's not like freehand. You can actually paint them. You would be able to just file them off, like take a sharp hobby knife and basically just kind of carve them off and just file them up if you want to do your own designs and things. But for people like me, who freehand isn't the best, those ones will be able to paint up really, really nicely. Glensian, is weather a thing in the game like storms? I don't want to say too much about them, but there are weather effects in the game. Marxian, I think every new release has to offer some kind of solo variant, even if only to entice purchasers in this period of continued uncertainty. It's a big decision for a lot of people, but I think sometimes not every game can have a solo variant. If you take something like Blood Bowl, for example, it'd be very difficult to have a solo variant of Blood Bowl, for example. This doesn't mention solo rules in the book, but after reading it, there are certainly situations in here that you could very, very easily adapt to be some like solo scenarios, and I'm sure the community will come up with solo scenarios as well. Peter saying off to bed, early shift tomorrow. Thank you very much for coming in, mate. Ron saying he prefers rules with solo options. Marco saying that cool will be to have 6mm commanders. I don't think it's I think even 6mm is probably too big. Is it for 1/700th? I'm not sure. Iron saying, yeah, Magnet's saying a good move. David Moffat says, well, I'm not a naval battle kind of guy, but I'm sitting here painting camo on battle mechs and feeling slightly tempted. Yeah, I mean, by all means, if you check out any battle reports for Black Seas, it will give you a rough idea of the mechanics. But my own honest personal opinion is I think Mantic they've done a cracking job in adapting a rule set that's kind of proven and putting a fantasy twist on it, dialing up the fun a little bit more, sprinkle in some really kind of interesting scenarios. And for me, I think it improves on what already looks a decent rule set for Black Seas. David says 4x3 does happen to be my maximum gaming space at home. You'll be able to play very happily on 4x3, mate. Luke saying the masts I would not say are flimsy in a way that they will snap, but the rigging does add a very pleasant rigidity to them. Yes, mate. I've watched quite a bit of stuff on the rigging and stuff. VG saying, yeah, really buy games that don't have solo options. Christian just sharing the Goblin link. Thank you very much, mate. Luke saying all mini games have solo options. It's the building and the painting. Yeah, there is that side of it, mate, isn't there? David saying 6 mil is 1/300. So yeah, it would be 3 mil commanders basically, mate, I think. Scott saying shame you didn't get a size comparison render for the XL ship. And Jason saying they have the XL base sizes listed on their site. I've not looked to see what's listed on there. I obviously have them here, but let me have a quick look and see if I can tell you roughly how much bigger they are than a standard one. If I can find the base sizes here. Where are we? So the extra large ships are about like 25% longer than a large one. So if a large one is 100 mil long, an extra large one is 125 mil long. So that should give you a rough idea. Kind of they're 25% longer than a large one. So it gives you a bit of an idea. Right, where are we up to here? Have we caught up with all of the chat here? Have I actually caught up with the chat for a change? We've got 536 people in, and I'm only just catching up with the chat now. That is unbelievable. So, folks, what's your thoughts? What do you think? How are we doing for time? 10 o'clock. Oh, we've got loads of time. What's your thoughts? Do you have any questions? I will tell you if I can't answer them. Like I say, for a reason, Mantic obviously want to be able to kind of to share some of the stuff themselves as well. VJ saying, so not to change the topic, but thoughts on Blitzball game. Have to say I had a blast. You're a really fun opponent. And if I roll one more show, yeah, I really enjoyed Blitzball, mate. So for those that don't know, we chat about in our Patreon group. That basically, me and VG are there over in Australia. He was up at like 6 o'clock in the morning to have a game. We played on Tabletop Simulator, had a game of Blitzball. I absolutely loved it. We had great fun. We'll definitely be playing it again soon, mate. Jimmy saying, however, man, you had me sold once I saw that Dictator class. I can't wait to send some of those unholy to the bottom of the sea. We'll need to get a game in, mate. Iron says, going to have to bide my time with Victory at Sea. Yeah, Victory at Sea doesn't really do it for me personally. It's the fantasy thing that really kind of like tips us over the edge to makes me kind of like, the rules are good. I love the ships. It's the fantasy aspect that basically makes it like I'm sold, I'm in kind of thing. George is saying the best thing about Armada is the broadside. Dirk saying the box with the acrylic bases lists all the base sizes. Okay, mate. There you go. Bliss saying, do we get to see the XL Orc ship? No, mate. They haven't revealed any more of the ships yet. The XL ones. The one I've shared tonight is the only version of it anywhere. Nobody else has seen the XL one yet. And Mantic sent it to me today and said, look, you can reveal that tonight on your live stream. So yeah, I'll flick it back for those that have just come in a little bit later as well. So that one is the Dictator there. It is the Dictator, isn't it? I've got the right name. Yes, Dictator class. And I think there's like a named Dictator as well, which potentially might. I haven't got the images in front of me here, unfortunately. But yeah, there's a named Dictator in there as well. We do know what the Orc, the large one's called, because it was on that sheet with all of the different bits and pieces. Which I think it's called the Ripper Hulk, which is the big one. But images, I've got an image here, obviously in the rule book, but it's not being shared anywhere. And I'm sure Mantic will want to be sharing those out as and when it gets a little bit nearer to release and stuff as well. Where are we at? Are they campaign mechanics? I'm not at liberty to talk about that kind of stuff at the minute. Sorry. Andrew says, missed the whole first hour. Insert your plug for the Tuesday video here. Yeah, so what I do, folks, for anybody that doesn't sit through this one, or you missed the start of this and you don't want to watch the whole thing back, I do like an edited version which comes up on a Tuesday, which is just called BlackJack Clips, and I basically cut out like less of the kind of interaction with the audience and with questions and stuff, and I just kind of edit in the main kind of information. So what I'll essentially do is show all the ships that I've shown tonight and pop them up tomorrow as well if anybody wants to watch it back later. Glenn saying they're definitely interested, but not 100% on pulling the trigger yet. Completely agree, mate. Yeah, I mean, I always like to see kind of see more about the rules. Like I say, obviously, if you've seen any Black Seas rules, you might be thinking, oh well, I don't like that bit, or I really like that bit. I hope it's in there. So I can completely understand people might not have made up their minds yet. I've been given kind of the rules here to read through. I've got ships on the way. They want me to make content to kind of show the game off. There's a date that I'm not allowed to release any kind of like rules, details, and things prior to that, because I think they want to do their own marketing and sharing and stuff. But it's very soon. I'll have some kind of gameplay stuff up there with the kind of how to play type stuff really soon. Scott Webster says, do you have a Kings of War faction that you would like to see? Well, I played Dwarfs, mate, so I was looking forward to seeing the Dwarfs coming through. The other one, personally, and this is not with any inside knowledge, because I don't know what's coming further down the line. I think I'd like to see kind of like a Veman one. I'd like to see kind of like rats on a sinking ship, kind of, have they got this ship that's kind of half sunk and they're basically battling around, and I think I'd like to see something like that, I think. Barry saying Blitzball rocks. It does, mate. Luke saying, I don't think I need to explain how keen I am for this game anymore than I already have. Marcus says, if this game is a success, I wonder if they do something similar for Warpath. I must admit, it crossed my mind as well, mate. Would this kind of set off a bit of a feel for kind of space combat type stuff? But we'll see. Iron says, now I'd kill for a fantasy victory at sea. Modern Magic at sea would be awesome. Phil saying, just notice the cannons and castles on the back of that. Oh yeah, it's still up there, isn't it? Yes, there is. There's quite a lot of detail on that one. So, Tom saying Abyssal Dwarven submarines, have them look like a Kraken. Yeah, I've obviously just got my Dreadfleet set out the other day to get the map out and get the bits of islands and things. And there's some awesome kind of design. I'm sure Mantic don't want to just kind of copy what's gone before them, but like there's some really nice themes that you could almost, even if you'd never seen those ships before, you couldn't fail to kind of go down that direction. Mark says, wasn't remotely interesting as I tuned in tonight, but now I'm warm and leaning towards finding out more on the Mantic site. Proof of the evils of social media and powerful influencers. I don't consider myself an influencer. I talk about what I'm passionate about. Like, and if I didn't like this game, if I didn't like what I'd read, I would tell you that I didn't like what I'd read. I would be completely honest about it. This is why I don't take any payments from any companies. I don't do sponsored content. I've told every company, if you send me stuff, I'm going to be honest about it. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. And the ones that send me stuff are absolutely fine with that. Some don't want to send me stuff. But yeah, this is my full-time job. I mean, there's 569 people in the chat now tonight. This is my full-time job. This is what I do now. I went full-time with this about 2 or 3 months ago, and basically I make my wages from Patreon, from selling T-shirts, and from people donating on the live stream as they did earlier on. That's basically how I make my living. I don't do any sponsored content. So yeah, you can at least trust what I'm saying is what I think, kind of thing. Big saying, yeah, the Dictator looks cool. Phil saying the cannons, what was that one? A superb detail. Vijay saying, I do like the idea of name ships. Yeah, so the name ships essentially basically they're unique. You can only take one of them. If they're a named ship, they might have a special kind of captain or something like that. You can only take one of those ones. Jimmy's saying, hopefully all the Kings of War games will be able to interlink. I think they've been talking about that themselves at some point, of trying to, how in the future will they be able to try and pull those kind of things together. I can imagine like a big summer campaign where you'll have battles at sea and stuff, and if certain factions win, they might take the coastline somewhere, which might get like a small kind of like a vanguard of people going out there to kind of explore the area, and then the whole Kings of War army comes over the hill. I can see that kind of thing coming. I think that would be really cool. And if Mantic don't do it, I think something I'd quite like to do purely for my own fun, really. Peter Nicholas is saying there, when is the launch? It's available now, mate, to pre-order, and it officially launches on the 21st of November. So you've got basically 2 months, about 8 weeks until it comes out. David saying the ships full of succubi would tempt me proper. Yeah, I can imagine the abyssal stuff may be good. Luke saying, when I get why dwarves are done like this, and always have been done this way in fantasy, a change in aesthetic would have been nice, even just a bit tweaked. It's hard, mate, isn't it? Like dwarves, like these things have to kind of live live up to the. First of all, you got to live up to the Kings of War kind of tropes, if you like, because that's Mantic's universe. That's the Panathor universe. So like I've shown it before. Like, I'm not going to get it out now, but basically, even like my dwarf stuff, it's big, like the behemoths. It's all armored. It's kind of slow and heavy and armored. You've got to kind of live up to that kind of stuff, I suppose. So I get what you're saying, but how far do you veer away from it, really? Jason, was Dreadfleet any good? Beautiful models, mate. I think basically people were expecting something that wasn't just a one-off game, I think. And it is very, very random. Very random. And I don't think people basically liked that at the time, mate. Konstantinos says boarding parties that can take over enemy ships would be an amazing mechanic. That's in the rules, mate. That's in there. So basically what you can do is if you are 3 inches away from another ship, basically when you've stopped your move, you can try and basically do a boarding action. You basically send over the grappling hooks. If you pass a skill test, you can pull the 2 ships together. They essentially basically meet in the middle. The 2 ships come together, and then you can start to board and attack. And things like the ability of your crew basically starts to come into play there as well. Dirk saying Hegman's Fury is the name of the dictator class. There, I said it. Yeah, it's not in front of me here, mate, but I do have the documents with the names on, but I haven't got it in front of me. Christian, thank you very much for sharing the Amazon links there as well. That's another way that I kind of pay the bills. John Francis saying Mantic using existing rule system is a win-win for them. Not too much development, especially if it isn't a success, but it's plenty of scope for faction expansions. I think it's just kind of worked. I think it's basically just worked just really well for them. Rather than trying to go back to the drawing board, just take those rules, kind of pay a licensing fee or whatever they've done, and just basically work from there. It's worked really well. Casper saying, do you know how long the 20% off from Goblin Gaming lasts? I think it's pretty much permanent, mate. I think Goblin normally have 20% off Mantic products like all the time, I think. So if you look on their online, if you look on their store now and go and look at some Kings of War products, I think they're 20% off. It's pretty much just their standard price, mate. Steve, hello Steve, how are you doing? Says my group is looking at crossing over to Kings of War, Vanguard, Armada, and the RPG. I think that it fits perfectly, mate, doesn't it? Kuros is saying, yeah, just because rules are detailed doesn't make it a war game. Yeah, sometimes detailed rules can actually make it not very fun, to be fair. Casper says we all wanted Man of War and got Dreadfleet. I think that's maybe what people got upset about. Luke says, I mean, an aesthetic change, like instead of ironclads again, maybe paddle steamers. There are other ways to stay the same aesthetic and not repeat previous efforts. Have you seen the ironclad? Have you seen the dreadnought? Sorry, which is the XL ship. Have a look at that one, mate. Paul saying Dreadfleet failed mostly because it wasn't Space Hulk. More than likely, mate. Scott said, unfortunately, I need to sleep. We'll catch the rest tomorrow. Thank you very much for coming in, Scott. Blizzard saying, I need to know how big to make islands so I can get some terrain made before release. All I'll say is, if you look at the Black Seas videos, they'll give you an idea based upon the fact that the rules are from Black Seas and the scale of the ships and stuff. Crowley says that's basically all the information you basically need. Basically, yes, basically it is, mate. That must be the new way we're at. I think basically and literally is a very northeast thing. We seem to say that a lot anyway. So, have we got any? I'm keeping up with the chat tonight, folks. I can't believe we've got over 600 people in, and I can still keep up with the chat. You lot are obviously not asking enough questions. D Sky or Robert, good evening. Welcome to the chat. Says, wonder who's stocking this in the States. I don't know personally, mate, but anybody that stocks Mantic stuff will certainly be stocking this, I'd imagine. Just while we've got a bit of a lull in the chat there in a minute, just to kind of say, folks, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please do click the subscribe button. I've got, like I've said before, I don't know if people missed it, I have the rules here. This is what I have here. I've got the rules. The ships should arrive tomorrow. I will be having gameplay videos, a bit more explanation, much more content building up to the launch as well. So if this is a game you're interested in, maybe you want to find out a little bit more about it, subscribe to the channel, click the notification button, and you'll be notified when that content goes up. Glenn says, any plans for you to make some terrain for it, Andy? To be honest, mate, it's something I might do over time. But I'm not going to get too hung up on it. The scale of it is obviously 1/700. It's going to be pretty small. I don't know whether you saw before me, but I've got. I might just grab this. I've got the Dreadfleet bits of kind of islands and stuff here. I've just primed those up, ready to use. There's things like bits of kind of like shipwrecked. I can kind of see all the damage in them. Bits of shipwrecked ships and stuff like that. I'll probably use them as bits of scatter terrain for my first few games, and then maybe over time I might do some other bits and pieces. There's things like sandbanks and that in the game as well, which you can still go over, but might potentially take damage on. And for them, I might even just kind of sprinkle a bit of sand on the tabletop. To be fair. Lord Maiden saying he's painting his slow grow punk model. Nice one. Busey says, is it really 600? It says 98 on here. Oh, I'm looking at the playbacks. That's what it is. I'm looking at the playbacks. Ian says, I really like to see just a bit more realism in the dwarf designs. Not a big deal, but why don't I have a few more turret-based ships like those in the 19th century? It's fantasy stuff, mate. You don't need a turret if you're blasting things with magic and stuff, I suppose. Yeah, everyone's seen C91. Yeah, it was copied off the screen properly. It says 621, but it's number of playbacks, mate. Barry's saying, does anyone know if Goblin ships to the USA? I don't think they do, mate, unfortunately. I've got a feeling they don't, or if they do, I think it's quite expensive. The other place you can check out as well, I think if you look at some of my older videos, there's a link through to Element Games as well. There's a link through to there as well, and I think they'll probably be stuck on it. Yeah, everyone's telling me I've got my numbers wrong. It's because I've got it shrunk down on my screen, so it was cutting off all the bits and pieces at the top. George is saying, please post the Armada ships next to Dreadfleet on the Facebook page when you can. I will do, mate. Yeah, I think that's something that people want to see. As soon as I get the ships in my hand, like I say, I'll be putting those up as well. Luke saying, I wonder where those numbers were coming from. Still up on your stream. Yeah, it's basically that there's like an analytics thing made from the streams, and for some reason it kind of got jumbled up a little bit. It's got basically like number of playbacks and stuff like that, mate. I think basically if I can look on this, I think we kind of peaked out about 128 or something like that. So it was still 129 maybe. So that's still really good, mate. Still really good. I'm happy with that. Glenn saying you could make the island of the Lizard King. Peter said I assume Andy was being a little inventive for marketing reasons. Yeah, not likely, mate. It's just been a long day, that's all. Crabby said I was literally buzzing there, mate, having 600. Basically clocked it at that point. No, it's all the titles had been chopped off the top of the screen, mate. Standard saying they are way bigger than the Dreadfleet ships, or at least the XL ones are. Yeah, I've got. Actually, let me just grab something. I'll keep talking. Bear with me. And what I'll do is I'll grab one of these ships. And what I'm going to do is I'll just quickly measure. So if I take, this is one of the ships from Dreadfleet, one of the bigger ones, if you like. If I take that one and I'll just measure the base of this one is 85 mil long, and the XL ships are 125. So let me just. So basically, from the end of that ship to where my finger is, that's how much longer the XL ships are. Basically, across to there. Joachim, contribution to a new microphone. Thank you, mate. I don't think it's the microphone. I think it's the interface into my computer. The stupid thing is, I spent 2 hours this afternoon trying different ways to make it work, and it was working absolutely fine. It's really frustrating that it does that. It worked fine, and then as soon as it starts streaming live, I even was streaming it live, like without sending it to YouTube. I was streaming it to YouTube and then previewing it coming back, and the sound was perfect, mate. It's really annoying. Yeah, Luke's saying that they're bigger than I remember. Yeah, but it's So yeah, the XL ones are. I think these ones are quite tall. I don't know what the height of those ones are, but this is definitely this is the biggest ship, I think, or certainly one of the bigger ships that are in there. But the Manic ones are about sort of. Let me do it against the black. Probably about another inch, should we say? Yeah, probably about another inch to inch and a half longer than that one. Jimmy G says, I can't believe you have a bottle of Hake Club on your shelf. That's an awful whiskey. And is the other Monkey Shoulder? It is Monkey Shoulder, mate. I like Monkey Shoulder. And Hake Club, it was somebody bought me as a gift, but it's all right with Coke. I don't put my good whiskies on the shelf over there, mate. My good ones are downstairs where I drink them. Yeah, Dirk saying extra large is 125. Peter said, I've got something that works extremely well, only when no one's watching too. It's so frustrating, mate. So frustrating. But I think what one of the biggest issues I've got is the audio interface into my computer. Basically, has got a really sort of bad like electronic hum in it. Something's obviously breaking down inside it, and that's the problem I've got. The way I've had to do it tonight is I've had to just plug it basically just into the microphone input on the front of the PC just to get it working while I was on a live stream. That's the problem though when it goes down when you're in the middle of doing it live. Luke says the flagships and second rates for Black Seas are fabulously beautiful and about the same size as those XLs, so people can see a rough size. John says the whiskies are there in case of a milestone. That's it, mate. They're there for a little tipple in case anything kicks off. Still generous, mind you. What was that one? Yeah, Swedish Corona. Yeah. He hasn't just donated £100, mate. It is Swedish Corona. It is still a very, very generous donation. Thank you very much, Dirk. Joachim. Sorry, I'm reading Dirk's comment at the same time. Yeah, John saying the whiskies are there for the milestones. So yeah, I mean, so when it comes to kind of to Armada, you could potentially kind of proxy these in, but I think the widths are different. It won't fit with the measuring gauges, and obviously there won't be any kind of rules for them. I think the rules basically come on the cards that come with the ships, a little bit like the Vanguard ones. Marcus says, what piqued your interest on Armada whilst keeping you lukewarm on Aeronautica Imperialis? Do you know what? I think on Imperialis it was the hex movement. To be honest, that's where I kind of struggled with it. I didn't think that was a game that needed hex movement. It needed a bit more kind of open movement, and also one of the issues with the Games Workshop when they do those kind of games is I always feel that they're either going to be a one-off and there'll not be extra stuff for them, or they'll be very sporadic. Like everything will come out at once and then nothing for ages afterwards. I just feel like they don't support's not the right word, but like if you look what's available for Aeronautica Imperialis at the minute, basically just lots of quite similar type stuff really. And when I watched the gameplay videos, when I watched the rules and stuff like that, I like the actual the airplanes, if you like. I like those, but they just wasn't enough to the game that really interested me, if I'm perfectly honest. Where we are. Marcus says we're needing pirates tonight. We need rum. Casper says shit. Just spent £300 last year on oak and iron. Got to catch them all. You're right, mate. Obviously, seeing we're doing it here, but my diplomatic status is complicated. Luke says, "What's everyone's fleet that they gravitate?" I'm quite interested with the orcs. I'll be honest. I like that kind of like patched up kind of look to it. I think it was Matt mentioned on the podcast essentially that basically they get the goblins to basically build the ships for them, but they just come up with some absolutely stupid ideas and like they're amazed that they even work, kind of thing. I like that. Ponzi's I've tried to donate just to get Arnold's name off the screen. John Cleve says, the Black Sea is not particularly your fancy. I'm finding historical games really interesting. The models are fiddly though with the rigging. I mentioned right at the start of the stream, mate, historical games don't really kind of tickle my fancy, if I'm perfectly honest. I'm not really kind of into that type of stuff. But I must admit, I've been looking at Black Seas a lot more since like sort of having to do some research for this. And after reading these rules, I thought, I wonder how different it is from Black Sea. So I went back and kind of done some research on that. And I must admit, like, it's not I do like the look of those Black Sea ships. I'm not keen on the paper sails. I don't really fancy kind of doing the rigging. I was watching a video like on how to do the rigging, and the video was over an hour long. And if you have to do that for every single ship, well, I'll be there for months doing that. So I probably wouldn't buy into Black Seas now, because it will basically kind of scratch all of those itches. But if, for example, the quality of the ships was pretty poor, or the rules once I'd read them weren't very good, I can imagine Black Seas, being quite an interesting in game in itself. Luke saying, which podcast is it you mentioned? It basically, mate, it was the Countercharge podcast. So the guys on Countercharge do all the Kings of War podcasts, and they had Matt Gilbert on interviewing him about Armada. Ian says, so if you're playing a bat rep for Armada, I'm curious as to who you think makes for a good bat rep. What do you think makes for a good bat rep? Any tips for amateur bat rep makers? Yes, mate. First of all, you need to know the rules well enough that first of all, it saves you a lot of editing time that you have to keep stopping and referencing rules and coming back. It breaks up the flow of the game, so you need to know the rules well enough to play through it. Don't worry about getting rules wrong. Everyone gets rules wrong. Everybody that plays the game gets rules wrong. It's just that there's not a camera and like hundreds of people watching them telling them they're doing it wrong. So don't worry about getting them wrong. But you need to know them enough that you're not basically just playing from the book like all the way through. And for me, it's just about having fun. Like, I think it doesn't matter whether you have 10 different camera angles. It doesn't matter if you do it just kind of holding your phone. You just need to have fun. And I think if the fun comes across, it makes it entertaining. And I think for me, that's what makes it interesting. Mark says that I think the only successful side game GW made is Space Hulk, Warcry and Kill Team. I don't really class Warcry and Kill Team as side games so much. I like Space Hulk is a one-off. Dreadfleet was a one-off. You've got things like Silver Tower was a one-off. I think they did a good job with Blackstone Fortress, kind of keeping that like episodic and keeping things coming. What was the other thing I was just thinking of there before we said that? Like Speed Freaks, they bring that kind of thing out where they're really just selling models, if you like. It wouldn't surprise. I almost feel like the Aeronautica ships are almost coming for another reason, because they scale the same as Adeptus Titanicus, don't they? I think I almost feel like they're using that to get sculpts made to maybe bring out something else down the line. Luke saying also, when you're doing another podcast, do you know what? I completely forgot about them. If I'm perfectly honest. I need to catch up on some of those ones. So anybody that is kind of waiting for them, they will come. I just completely forgot about them, if I'm honest, mate. I've had a million. I am literally kind of working from first thing in the morning till kind of late in the evening, just sort of grinding stuff out at the minute. And I'm doing this on my own, and unfortunately, some things just skip my mind. Unless I've got them written down in front of me, I keep forgetting about them. So please, never feel like you can't remind me about stuff. Same thing's happening with this painting challenge at the minute. I just haven't had 5 minutes to actually sit down and just put a plan together to communicate it out properly. Marcus is interested to see Northern Alliance ships. I think what they said, mate, is that like I think potentially like for example they might not be doing any undead ships, because I think what they were saying was they didn't want to just copy the kind of Pirates of the Caribbean type stuff. So we'll see what they do. But like for example, I don't think there'll be any orc ships. I think you mentioned in the interview, the podcast interview, that essentially orcs will probably be like mercenaries. You might bring them in as kind of like hired hands, if you like, to be on the ships. So potentially orcs might not have a ship. Marcus is saying, yeah, granted, Space Hulk always a limited run. Yeah, but it's been back like 4 or 5 times, hasn't it? Luke saying, I don't care about the history of... where would that one go? Don't care about the history of Black Seas. I just like fleet games. Yeah, I get that, but I think in order to get... to make me want to paint the ships and stuff and to get involved in it, I want to feel immersed in it, I think. And one of the things with those kind of Age of Sail type stuff is there's not a huge difference between the different ships. David Mackay saying the rigging on the Black Sea ships is fiddly. After a few, they get easier. I can imagine, mate. Pomsy saying Mantica being clever, combining the naval thing and the fantasy thing. Yeah, they're certainly not the first person to do it, mate. It's just that there's a bit of a gap at the minute. Like Uncharted Seas is kind of hovering around in the background with who's got Uncharted Seas now? Yeah, it's what do you call it, isn't it? It's War Cradle. War Cradle's got Uncharted Seas. That's kind of hovering around the background in a bit of like limbo. You've got Dystopian Wars. That's not quite ready to come out yet. That's been kind of delayed a bit. You've got like obviously people love things like Man of War. That's not showing any signs of coming back anytime soon. I'm sure it might come back at some point. But I think there's just a gap for that fantasy naval game. Luke's down on that. George is saying thanks for the comparison. No worry. What if they're small digits though? Speed Freaks, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Luke says, now that I'm not commuting, the by podcast listening is almost ground to a halt. Yeah, I used to listen to a lot, mate. I tend to listen to them when I'm going to sleep. I put them on, so what I end up doing is I end up listening to like the first 10, 15 minutes and then falling asleep and having to try and catch up. When if I walk to nursery and drop my little one off, I listen to a podcast on the walk back, or if I'm walking to pick them up, I listen to a podcast on the way there, kind of thing. So I get a little bit in, but not huge amounts. Luke says, did you mean ogres? What did I say, mate? I meant ogres. Did I say orcs, did I? Maybe I said orcs. David saying, got to get ready to pick up my kid up from school. Thanks for the show. You are welcome, mate. Dax is saying, ogres won't get ships and goblins make the orc ships. Yeah, I think that's what I'd say. Certainly that's what I meant anyway when I was saying that. And Lucy, I flick through TikTok when I get into bed. Weird platform. I used to watch a little bit of it. I got weirdly kind of fascinated by what the hell am I actually watching? But randomly you can't kind of stop scrolling through them. Yes. So, folks, we're coming up to 10:30 now. I think I'm gonna unless anybody has any specific questions, I'm going to kind of round that one out now. I think that's probably a good place to stop it. So if anybody got any more questions about it, is there anything that you would like to see, anything specific you want to see when I kind of do any comparison videos or stuff, let me know. Was that one? Did you ever play Man of War? No, I didn't, mate. I mentioned right at the start, I've never played Man of War. It was out at a time when I wasn't really playing tabletop games. Luke said, I look forward to a good elf fleet. I can imagine the elf one's going to be interesting if they do one. It's potentially it can potentially be quite interesting. Mantic's elves are slightly different to kind of some of the other factions that are out there, like sort of like other kind of fantasy races. Kodos is saying artifacts, special captains. Yes to both of those things. Michael says, will Ger Panther ship be remote controlled? It will be if you put wheels in it, mate. Uncharted Seas was an interesting game. Spartan Games was not an interesting company. Yes, mate. Unfortunately, that was the case. Dax says, thanks for the info. Excited to start getting the Mantic Games universe. Welcome to that, mate. I didn't realise this would be your first one. Glenn saying Twilight Kingships on the horizon. Got no idea, mate. They've not mentioned anything about that. I would imagine that they're going to go with the ones where they can make something that looks a bit different, if you like. Something that looks a bit more just interestingly, like visually different, I think. Lord Maiden says, for someone who's missed a lot of Naval Sea games and only played Dystopian Wars once, how would you recommend it to me? I've never really played a lot of other naval games, mate. To be fair, I couldn't recommend it by comparing it to the stuff. I would say, from my own personal opinion, it's a fun rule set. It's not too difficult to play. I like the look of the ships. I don't play anything else like it. The fact that it's not like kind of you have to move the full distance because that's the speed of the ship. You can only turn kind of small angles. It reminds me of kind of X-Wing, being able to kind of like sort of predict where you want it to be and where's your opponent going to go and stuff. It's just very different. It's different from any other kind of tabletop game. It's got its own like little genre, really. So watch your back rep. Either wait for mine, look at some of the Black Seas ones that are out there, and see if it's the kind of game that you'll be interested in. Where's that one? Pomsy saying, yeah, let's forget how good Mantic were in the original Lockdown. They were great, I think. Vigi saying, if any Jackers want to learn Blitzball, hit him up. Definitely, mate. Anybody that fancies a game of Blitzball, I will heartily recommend a game with Vigi. Luke saying, I wonder if this is successful if they make a sci-fi fleet game. Yeah, we mentioned this earlier on, mate. I think it's definitely a potential. You could adapt the rules as they are, really, and put some kind of sci-fi measures in there, really. Will there be crabs? Do I get royalty? Busey saying, Mantic going to do special offers in the second lockdown, I wonder. We might not get a second lockdown. Simon says, all the neoprene mats on the horizon. You can already pre-order the neoprene mat, mate. There's a 4x4 neoprene mat that is available for pre-order. It's basically branded up, I think, for this particular game, and has positions around the edge where the windrows moves around and stuff. So yeah, it's available from the 21st of November alongside the game, mate. Casper says, is it I go, you go, or do you take turn activating ships? It is essentially, mate, the way it works is the way the wind direction is coming across the board. The wind, assume the wind is moving across the screen here. So when it's coming, if say it's going from, let's think from your side of things, it will be coming from west to east, if you like. So as it's moving across, the ship that it hits first is the first one to activate. So sometimes it might be coming kind of like northeasterly across the board. It might be coming south to north across the board. Whichever ship it hits first is the first ship to activate that gets the initiative. So it might hit all of my ships first. It might hit all of your ships first. Like it might hit one of mine and then one of yours and then one of yours and one of mine. So basically you can maneuver your ships to get an initiative for the next turn, so that basically you get to shoot your opponent before they shoot you and stuff. So there's a lot of kind of like tactics in there as well. And the wind can move direction during the game as well. It's one of the first things you do is you roll to see which way the wind's blowing, basically. But it will only ever, at most, move 1 point around the board. So you can kind of like predict that stuff. Marco says, for me, big pro, the models are amazing and never painted anything like that before. Same here, mate. Cons, default table size too big. I know it could be played on smaller surfaces, but I'd rather use official size. To be honest, mate, I mean, when you say official size, 4x4 is the recommended size for kind of for like 250 point games, if you like. But if you just want to play with a few less ships, like 4x3 works fine. Like a standard dining table type size works absolutely fine. You won't lose anything from the game. In fact, you can still play with more ships. It might just be a little bit more crowded, which might make for a more interesting game. So like don't get kind of put off by like 6x4 stuff. That's only if you're really ramping up the number of ships that you're going to have. Vijay saying, so order is based on the wind direction. Yes, it is, mate. Glenn saying, can wizards control the weather on your ships? I'll be honest, I don't know. I don't know, because I would imagine, how much can I say? I'll just say I don't know, okay? I don't know. Steve Depp says second, we're still in the first. Exactly, mate. Vijay saying, so putting a hex on them is fine. There is stuff in there that has, let me see if there's anything in here that I can potentially talk about without divulging anything. Let me have a look. Magical upgrades. No, I can't talk about. All I can tell you is there are magical upgrades. Vijay is saying, I played Dark Elves with Andy playing Orcs. Yes, I forgot how fast Dark Elves were, mate. Glenn saying I take that as a yes. Marco says, show the NDA in Patreon. We can find the loophole. I haven't actually signed an NDA for this particular game, but it's I have something called honesty and discretion. I think that's enough. So yes, folks, I think I'm gonna wrap that up now. So yes, if the ships come tomorrow, I will certainly put together a bit of a video so folks get to see it. If they come Wednesday, I'll be painting them up probably on the live stream. So I'll maybe build one up and then leave one like bare resin so you can kind of see how they fit and stuff. But I'll make sure that I kind of get those details out to you. Lucian, damn you and your models. Yes, mate. Casper just saying, you talk about upgrades. How important are they on ships, and is it something you always use on them? I can't go into too much detail, but if you think about Kings of War or Vanguard, where you can choose to buy upgrades or you can choose to not buy upgrades, it's entirely up to you. You don't have to have them. They cost points, and they're an option, basically. That's as much as I really kind of want to see on that one. Glenn says, great stream, Andy. Thanks. Looking forward to more videos on it. Thank you very much, mate. Pomsy saying, see you Wednesday. Marco says, if Matic wants to send me some ships, I'll paint. Basically, I'm not sure what their movement is. Steve saying, veteran crew, etc., like in Black Seas. Yes, mate. You have crew skills the same way, mate. Yeah. Hello, Skullmunch as well. Nice to see you in, mate. But I was saying, yeah, love to see what they look like in parts. Be cool to be able to magnetize their masts. Yeah, so I'll see what they're like, mate. So, folks, thank you very much. If anybody wants to check out the Patreon, please do check out the Patreon. And I will see you all on Wednesday for the paint stream. So, thank you very much, and I'll see you then.
Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month, and there is lots of different tiers and bonuses which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.